life knowing you killed someone just because of a text message. Now imagine going to jail just because of text message. Still think it will never happen to you? Still think you're the special one? There are so many that have been found guilty of texting while driving. But you can make a difference, just like so many young people have vowed not to text and drive. Leave your cell phone alone while driving. If you must send a text message, pull off the road into a parking lot or anywhere that is safe. No text is so important that it should cost your life or the life of someone else. You are not different. You are not special. You're just another accident waiting to happen if you do not desist from texting and driving. So, don't text and drive.
National Security Council links ISWAP or war. Check it out.
Savages who have no religion, who cannot even be said to belong to any particular ethnic nationality, are at pitching us against one another.
President Buhari to address the nation on Sunday, June 12th, to commemorate Democracy Day.
He celebrated Democracy Day on May 29, simply because that was the day that the military led over in power.
Inaugural flight to Saudi Arabia departs Maiduguri for this year's Hajj, 2 years after COVID-19 restrictions.
The worship also entails hardship, which requires patience, great sacrifice, self-restraint, and discipline.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the updates on the terrorist attack on Owo in this state.
Well, these are not the best of times in our country today, not as if they have been anyway. The wanton killings in Nigeria leave one in great apprehension, pain, and grief. Now, the scenario cuts a very unpleasant picture with terrorists ravaging in reckless abandon across different parts of the country.
Indeed, it has been a week of tragic massacres, as last Sunday alone, yet to be identified gunmen killed a monarch's wife in Sokoto and abducted wedding guests. Now, Kwara State also got a share of the spate of unlawful killings when another killer squad attacked an 18-seater bus in one of the local government areas of the state. 2 passengers died in that incident, while some other passengers were abducted. Perhaps the most tragic occurrence of the week was when worshippers at the St. Francis Church in Owo, Ondo State, were attacked during service. This was right inside the church auditorium on Pentecost Sunday by gunmen who killed dozens of the worshippers in cold blood. Now, this has thrown the Owo community and indeed the entire nation into mourning.
Indeed, and there's also been outcry of anguish and condemnation by Nigerians, labeling the act as satanic and cowardly. In fact, these acts of violence and disregard for the sanctity of life are in varying degrees, including, of course, incidents of lynching and jungle justice in the name of one offense or allegations that are not verified before life is snuffed out of victims.
Well, sadly, not much was heard about any of the assailants being apprehended as the victims and their families cry for justice. But the National Security Council, which met yesterday, identified the terrorist group known as the Islamic State West African Province ISWAP as being responsible for the terrorist attack on worshippers in Owo last Sunday. And of course, from that incident, the survivors are still battling to stay alive and have been receiving blood donations from Good Samaritans. Indeed, and that's one experience no one wishes for anyone, not even one's, perceived enemies. As usual, the federal government has come out to assure not just the people of Ondo State and Owo community, but also all Nigerians, that it will fish out the perpetrators of Sunday's attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari, in his condolence message to the government and people of Ondo State, condemned the killings of the worshippers in the church, saying that eternal sorrow awaits the perpetrators, both here on earth and ultimately in the hereafter. Well, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo also led the federal government delegation to Ondo State, where he equally reassured the government and people of that state, especially the entire community, that justice will be served. And while, of course, we await the apprehension of the perpetrators of that terrorist attack, the Ondo State government during the week released statistics of the victims, indicating that there were some 127 worshippers who were affected. So far, 40 have been identified as dead, 61 persons are on admission, and while 26 have been treated and discharged. So now that the National Security Council has identified ISWAP and directed security agencies to arrest perpetrators and bring them to justice, we hope, well, it will not take longer time for that to happen. In the meantime, we ask, what can be done to stop these acts of terror? And how far can the government and security agencies go in the fight against terrorism? These are some of the issues we'll be looking at again on this episode of Good Morning Nigeria. And it's on that note I welcome you all to the program. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul-Razak. And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we'll have our regular complimentary segments, and these include business and newspaper review, plus one or two others. For now, here is Dennis Adegunloye, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Dennis.
Yes, good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Good morning, Nigerians. Here is the morning news. The National Security Council is reassuring Nigerians of federal government's irrevocable commitment towards providing adequate security and maintaining law and order across the country. Member of the Council and Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola stated this while briefing journalists after the Council's meeting, saying ISWAP may have been responsible for the Owo church attack.
At pitching us against one another. That is what ISWAP represents. Our security agencies and forces are on their trail. We have indication of who they are, and we are going to bring them to justice.
President Muhammadu Buhari has granted audience to the South Sudanese ambassador to Nigeria, Paul Malong. Ambassador Malong, who has completed his tour of duty in the country, was in the State House to bid farewell to the Nigerian leader. President Buhari told the envoy that after 5.5 years in the country, he has virtually become a native. The president lauded the cordial relations between Nigeria and South Sudan during the period and wished the ambassador well in his future endeavors. Ambassador Malong commended President Buhari for standing firmly in support of the peace process in South Sudan, saying the country would continue to rely on Nigeria's guidance and encouragement. Presidential candidates of the governing All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, has expressed formal appreciation to President Muhammadu Buhari for keeping faith with his commitments to providing a level playing field for all aspirants during the just concluded special convention of the APC. This is when the former Lagos State governor paid a thank you visit to the president at his official residence Thursday evening. Chief Tinubu was accompanied on the visit by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State and the chairman of Owando PLC, Wale Tinubu. The APC presidential candidate who spoke to NTA News described President Buhari as a true leader who is committed to the ideals of the governing APC's democratic values and indeed a greater Nigeria.
Promised the entire country and the world that he will build a legacy of transparency and consistency, legacy of level playing ground for all the candidates. He will be committed to democratic principles and values, and he did so.
And news on the outcome of the APC Special National Convention is still making the rounds as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has congratulated Asiwaju Bola Tinubu on his victory at the presidential primary. In a statement, the Vice President also congratulated President Muhammadu Buhari and all leaders of the APC for a successful Special National Convention. Professor Osinbajo said for many decades, the APC standard-bearer has shown passion, patriotism, courage and determination in the cause of nation building. He added that all members must now unite behind the presidential candidates to ensure victory for the party in the 2023 general elections. Similarly, former Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi has congratulated Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu on his emergence as the presidential candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC. In a statement, Amechi pledged to support Tinubu in ensuring that the APC maintains its grip on power next year. In the meantime, APC National Chairman Senator Abdullahi Adamu and members of the National Working Committee, NWC, have pledged to work hard to deliver Asiwaju Tinubu as president. In a statement, the NWC, led by its national chairman, visited the party's presidential candidate to congratulate him and give assurance that the party leadership will work assiduously to deliver him as president. Thanking the chairman and members of the NWC, Asiwaju Tinubu said he is honoured by the visit and thanked the NWC for their commitment and urged members of the party to work together to achieve victory at the polls in the 2023 general elections. Meanwhile, the PDP Governors Forum is to adopt a holistic approach in prosecuting a successful electioneering campaign that will result in victory for the party at the 2023 general elections. Timothy Yusuf reports that this was the fallout of a strategic meeting of PDP governors and the party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar in Abuja.
The national chairman, along with the candidate, came to thank the governors for their various roles in the convention. And we have discussed about cooperation, collaboration, and prosecuting a very, very successful electioneering campaign that will result into victories for the PDP.
President Muhammadu Buhari will address the nation on Sunday, June 12th. The nationwide broadcast is part of events lined up to commemorate this year's Democracy Day. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed at a media briefing in Abuja said the events will be rounded up with a ceremonial parade on Monday, 12th of June.
Appointment is scheduled to tomorrow, Friday 10th June, at the National Mosque here in Abuja at 10 a.m. Date will be following on the same day and the same day by Kima service and the same at noon. On Sunday, June 12th, There will be a church service at the National Christian Center at 3 p.m. And finally, on Monday, June 30th, the ceremonial parade will be held at Abuja.
And the federal government has declared Monday, 13th of June 2022 as public holiday to mark this year's Democracy Day celebration. Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola, who made the declaration on behalf of the federal government, congratulated Nigerians on the occasion and urged all citizens to support the present administration in its efforts at ensuring a secured, united and prosperous nation. Aregbesola admonished Nigerians to use the occasion to reflect on the long journey the country has made towards the enthronement of a civil democratic order before national independence in 1960 till date, and the sacrifices of the nation's patriots. He reminded Nigerians of the challenges faced and overcome, including a civil war, and said any form of agitation that threatens the unity of the country should be shunned for the good of all, saying the space known as Nigeria would be a haven of peace, unity and progress if all citizens love their neighbors and embrace the spirit of brotherliness. 550 intending pilgrims from Borno State have left for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to perform the 2022 Hajj exercise on the inaugural flight in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, 2 years after its suspension due to COVID-19. Yagumsu Bukar reports that a total of 1,295 intending pilgrims from the state are expected to be airlifted in on three flights to represent Borno in the Holy Land.
Hajj being an act of worship also entails hardship, which requires patience, great sacrifice, self-restraint and discipline. I therefore call upon you to obey all the COVID-19 protocols.
The pilgrims are already having all their traveling documents. We have made arrangement for the PCR test. We are fully ready.
And that concludes the morning news. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Claire after this break. Good morning.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 24 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Knock, knock, knock. Have you had breakfast this morning? I'm talking about the Kellogg's breakfast. It's fortified with the essential vitamins and minerals so you can stay active and alert. Tell me, so tasty, so nutritious.
Wake up the champion in your child. Give them energy to go further. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child. Milo.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigerian, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. On business news this morning, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NAPC, is enjoining manufacturers and business owners alike to leverage Nigeria's export trade house in Cairo, that's in Egypt, to exert dominance on the African markets. Kunle Adeye will give us all the details.
The Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, has disclosed that it is set to create trading platforms for Nigerian business communities across Africa and global markets. In an interface with business community in Lagos, Executive Director of the Council, Dr. Ezra Yakusak, implored the Nigerian business owners to take advantage of the Nigeria Export Trade House in Cairo, Egypt, towards facilitating economic growth and market access.
We at the NEPC firmly believe that our survival as a nation depends on non-oil export. And that's why we are organizing this advocacy program to ensure or to make sure that our exporters leverage on the services that are going to be provided by the export trade house.
Or a platform, a specially designated platform that will cater to show farmers and traders alike what is being bought at the other side of the world. We can assist to say, okay, we will buy from you in 10-month cycle. And this 10-month cycle will create more money for you and will create stability.
The NEPC boss maintained that Nigeria's huge commodity market requires aggressive marketing for improved value addition of Nigerian exportable products and produce in the North African region. The council also met with agro-processors and producers who are informed of ongoing efforts to remove Nigeria from the EU restricted list and reinstate Nigeria's imports into the international markets. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle Adeye, for the business news package and Good Morning Nigeria. Next, newspaper review.
All right, and we sincerely apologize. Bayo won't be here for a while. He's unavoidably absent, so Kingsley and I will go through the papers this morning for you. Kingsley, understand? I'll begin with the Punch? Or?
I think we can begin with the Punch newspaper.
Okay. All right. So let's stick with the Punch. And its lead story is on Atiku's running mate. PDP raises panel as Wike Okowa lobby for VP slot. Atiku meets ex-governors, governors, NWC, BOT members intensify search for VP and submit presidential governor candidates' names, running mates, INEC tells parties. Submit presidential governorship candidates' names and the running mates, INEC tells parties. And Tinubu pays a surprise visit to Oshibajo. Buhari hosts APC presidential candidate. You see the two different pictures right on your screens. The first, the presidential candidate of the APC, of course, speaking with the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and of course the other picture is also with the Vice President. Other stories trending, I'll take you just a little above the nameplate, and it says, Oyo massacre, experts tackle federal government over insecurity. Government blames eSwap. Details of that on page 16. Traders short Lagos market, youth storms TBS, that's Tafawa Balewa Square, for voter registration. It's on page 16. And NNPC makes 1.7 trillion from crude sales in 12 months. And just tucked in there, you find Nigeria imports 41 billion naira sold despite huge local deposits. It's on page 22. And, excuse me, federal government spending on trader money, others hit 36.3 billion naira. And the other stories are trending at the foot of the paper. You find Kwankwaso's NNPP turns new bride in Kano. The smart defection hits APC. Now, Abuja robbers ambush journalists, steal phones, cameras, victim crushed. And months after Punch investigation, court slams Nigerian army 200 million naira damages for killing Imo businessman. There are also other stories there, Kingsley.
All right. We also have Al Jazeera Friday. The most significant story on the front page here is the lead, which says submission of candidates. Again, INEC extends deadline to June 17th. With a write-up as Atiku and Tinubu widen search for running mates. The story has a number of details. I will go through some of those details inside on page 8. And it says that according to INEC, the submission of list of candidates for national elections will automatically shut down at 6 p.m. on Friday, June the 17th, 2022. That's a week from today. Now, the Commission also said that governorship and House of Assembly elections, the list of candidates, shall be uploaded from the 1st of July to the 15th of July. In other words, the portal for governorship and state House of Assembly elections will open on the 1st of July and shut down automatically on the 15th of July. But in the meantime, for national elections, that's to say, elections for the presidential seat, the elections for the House of Representatives and the Senate, the nominations by the parties for their candidates will shut down on the 17th of June. That's at 1800 hours. That's what INEC has said in the latest extension. If we recall, this is the second extension that we're having now for the parties to comply with the requirements for participation in next year's general elections. Now back to the front page. Gold and other minerals generate 19.2 billion naira in Q1. That's the first quarter. Many fear dead over Adamawa and Gombe communities clash. One dead, property burnt as tanker rams into Juth. That's the Jos University Teaching Hospital. Democracy Day, we have lots to celebrate. That's according to Lai Mohammed. APC primary, why I scored 0 votes, according to Bakari. You have details of that on page 9. Bakari is explaining why he scored 0 votes. He said that I'm happy that I have passed the test of character by not paying any delegate. I passed the test of courage by speaking the truth in the midst of wolves, and the test of conviction by standing true to my beliefs. So that's Pastor Tunde Bakare, who scored 0 at the just concluded APC Special National Convention, where the presidential candidate of the party was elected. Now back to the front page. NNPC spends over 900 billion naira on PMS subsidy from January to April. Details of that you find on page 24. All right.
Obviously, very, very interesting stories we have this morning. But I think the one that really touched me is the visit of the APC presidential candidate to the vice president, and I'm just wondering what he could be saying to the vice president. Going by the caption we see on the front pages.
Well, first of all, I think with the reactions of the other candidates or other aspirants, as they were, those reactions should be commended because they have recognized that they are all under one roof, and that the election was free and fair, and they were defeated. No question about that. It might have been otherwise if there had been vote tampering or there had been some manipulation, but it was right there in the glare of not just the participants, but others who were watching on television. So if you were beaten squarely and fairly, nothing else, unless you have some other legal grounds for challenging the election of the candidate, then the best thing to do is to say, well, why not? Let's get back. But we must also say this, except towards the end, when there was some offensive publication, there was quite some civil interaction or engagement between Asiwaju Tinubu and Professor Yemi Osinbajo. I mean, that's no question. They have both come a long way. Osinbajo served as Attorney General of Lagos State with Asiwaju, who was in office, and he performed excellently well. Part of the legal reforms that we have seen in Lagos and the transformation of the judiciary in Lagos were his ideas. And some of the instances of litigation involving the Lagos state government and the federal government were also undertaken by him. And then he also had a special assistant at the time who worked with him, also a lawyer who is now his deputy chief of staff. I'm talking about Ade Ikpaye. Ade Ikpaye eventually also became the Attorney General of Lagos. So that's been, it's as I said, apart from just maybe about a week or two to the convention, when some hirelings then started spewing fire and brimstone. Otherwise, Yemi Osinbajo himself had cautioned his supporters not to use any abusive or offensive language in addressing Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So this is the beginning of a rapprochement. After the fight, then you have to have a united front. The same thing that you are seeing with regard to the People's Democratic Party, those who have been defeated in their own primaries. Everybody is trying to close ranks, because if you carry the acrimony into the general elections, ultimately you will lose out. It's going to be...
Do you think this is something developing for us? Are we seeing a different spirit, different orientation among these politicians, coming together? Otherwise, in the past, this wasn't the story. This wouldn't have been the story.
Oh, that's right. That's what I said. They now realize that if you carry this acrimony into the general election, then everybody suffers. If the party loses, if the candidate loses, everybody suffers, because you are shut out in the cold. So it's better to have a united front, especially now as the influence of what we refer to as the third party is growing. And at least there are two of them. You have the Labour Party, and then you also have the NNPP. The Labour Party... NNPP. Kwankwaso is their candidate, and Peter Obi, of course, got the all clear from INEC yesterday to say that it is the faction that tapped him as a candidate that the INEC recognizes. So that's that. But there's something that is a bit ugly that is developing. Some so-called area boys were said to have attempted to disrupt the voter registration exercise by some potential registrants at the Alaba market in Lagos.
Yes, I was going to say that.
What was the purpose of that? These are sometimes with these incidents occur, and we just take them as a simple rascality. It isn't. If registrants are keen on getting their PVCs or registering to get their PVCs, why should anyone destabilize them? And I think that these are the kind of incidents that happen, and people begin to sometimes read ethnic meanings into it. We saw what happened, for instance, during the 2019 election around the Okota area, where hoodlums attacked polling units, destroyed their ballot papers and ballot boxes. And right now, I do not know what the outcome of the arrests and prosecution have become on account of that. I think that the security agencies ought to step in speedily. If I have my PVC, you don't know whom I'm going to vote for.
And I think I mean, those traders should be commended. You know, I mean, it's a new thing that they have done for the youths to shut down the markets. And indeed, I was watching one of the video clips yesterday, and you know, some of them speaking in their native dialects, talking to everybody. Look, if you have an apprentice, and he or she is, you know, over 17 years, he or she must be 18 years. He must get a PVC. If it doesn't, then you're going against the rule of the association. So that was very, very commendable. That's what INEC is preaching. That's what everybody is preaching. Arm yourselves in your PVC. That way, your vote will count, and you'll be contributing to, of course, enthroning our democracy and electing, you know, the leader we want
of your choice. I mean, the fact once you have your ballot paper and you are casting if you are thumb printing it in secret, nobody knows for whom you are voted. And just one point to further illustrate the recklessness of the action of the so-called area boys. Every Thursday in major markets in Lagos, every Thursday, the markets do not open before 10 a.m. because the market traders and others are involved in what they call their sanitation exercise. So why don't area boys go to destabilize them when they are doing those sanitation exercises?
Well, Kingsley, we've done a bit now. You know, the rest is left to the security agencies and, of course, to the relevant authorities to take action. That's it for newspaper review for this segment. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with our conversation.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, exclusively with Professor Umar Garba Dambata, Executive Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC.
We have unveiled the 622 as a toll-free line through which consumers can be able to lodge their complaints. And we have introduced the 112 as the national emergency number.
This edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from technology, entertainment, economy, media, politics, family, and lots more. Pick up your copy and get abreast with issues and trending features within our space. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion. As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within, and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Arise, O Nigerians! Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our conversation, which is an update on the terrorist attack on the St. Francis Catholic Church in Ondo State, let's listen to this background by our correspondent, Ekene Ndulue.
Last Sunday started like every other Sunday morning for worshippers at St. Francis Catholic Church, Owaluwa Owo, Ondo State. But it was not going to remain so for long. Just as Mass was ending for celebration of Pentecost Sunday, explosives and gunshots rattled the atmosphere, raining on worshippers, leaving behind trails of blood, dead bodies and the wounded. It was an attack that shocked to the bone marrows, while many Nigerians who still believe in the sanctity of human lives and worship places. Official statements indicate that 127 worshippers were involved in the attack that left 40 persons dead and scores wounded. Since the attack, government officials have been commiserating with the victims and Owo community. From the President, the Vice President and the Ondo State government, it has been strong messages of condemnation of the attack with assurances that the perpetrators will be brought to book. So far, the killers are still at large as Nigerians await justice for the dead and wounded. Recent developments indicate that security agencies might be close to the trail of the terrorists. At the National Security Council meeting this Thursday, presided by President Muhammadu Buhari, it was disclosed that the footprints of ISWAP were seen in the dastardly act, while security agencies were directed to arrest and bring them to justice. The Owo Church attack is just one out of many violent attacks on unarmed civilians in recent times, and the safety of Nigerians has become a major source of concern. What is the solution to the growing problem of terrorist attacks in the country? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria shall be speaking on issues around the Owo Church attack and other security matters.
Ekene Ndulue there with the background report on the prompt for our conversation this morning. That's the attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo Ondo State. And since then, he says, there have been couple of other attacks here and there. We have our guests in the studio. Let me quickly introduce Brigadier General Sani Kukasheka Usman, and he's consultant with the Nigerian Army Resource Center here in Abuja. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your program.
Also with us in the studio here in Abuja is Joshua Kabila. And Joshua Kabila is retired Deputy Inspector General of Police. He was in charge of operations. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And also part of the conversation this morning from our Kaduna Network Studios, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Kabir Adamu, security risk management expert. Dr. Kabir Adamu, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Pleasure is mine. Good morning, Kingsley and Claire.
All right, let's begin the conversation with you. One of the signature methods of terrorists is surprise. And I'm sure that for all who heard the news of what happened in our world last Sunday, you probably wouldn't have identified or were on the map as a likely target for a terrorist onslaught. What's your reading of this sudden bloodshed that we had in the Ondo State town of Owo?
Like every Nigerian, and in fact anyone who saw what happened there, it went viral on social media, of course, and images as well as videos of the incident were broadcasted by social media practitioners. It was horrid, and every right-thinking person, condemned it. However, before that particular incident, I run a consultancy, as you know, and we've been monitoring the activities of especially the Islamic State in West Africa province. Now, from February, after the US killed its then leader, and as well as the spokesman of the group in an attack in Syria, the group stated that it was going to launch a campaign which it called the revenge of the killing of the two sheikhs. So from March through to April, we saw several bombing incidents in Taraba, particularly Kaduna State, and then the one that I want to talk about are the attacks in Kogi State, where in Kaba specifically, we saw several attacks claimed by the group. And the amazing thing is that the group sometimes on the same day or a day after will claim those attacks. So when we looked at the map of Kogi State, we now saw the frontier states to Kogi, including Ondo as an example, with the possibility that if the group could carry out such attacks in Kogi, then it's very possible, for instance, that it could attack neighboring, what I would call frontier states, including, unfortunately, the FCT and places like Ondo. So to that extent, as a practitioner, someone who is involved in intelligence, I wasn't exactly too surprised, given the trademark signature method of the group and the nature of the attack that occurred on Ondo in that day. The only surprising element is that the group is yet to claim that attack. But in terms of the methodology that was used, all the signatures unfortunately bore the mark of that group. So on the one hand, I'm surprised about the dastardly nature of the attack, but unfortunately on the other hand, not too surprised because of this trend that I've mentioned, given the spread of ISWAP in neighboring states, including Kogi as an example.
Again, delay to accept responsibility is surprising in itself. Do you read any meaning to that?
Well, first off, the fact that there was a global attention given to that incident. In fact, the Pope spoke about the incident, and that it was covered by all the major media houses. That in itself would make any group, to tread carefully in terms of whatever statement is going to release. First off, the global condemnation behind the perpetrators. Of course, terrorist groups would want to capitalize on that because they want attention and they want to use their attention to generate whatever interest or they're after. Now, to that extent, it's possible that the group would be more hesitant unless it understands the sentiment of the people at that time. So it won't be surprising if in the coming days we hear that attack, that claim of responsibility by the ISWAP as an example. But I would also want to mention that even the government statement was not conclusive. Just like, my own analysis is not exactly conclusive. ISWAP is a likely, perpetrator, but there are also other possibilities, and only a full-blown investigation, one that would identify all the imperatives, what, when, where, how, and who, would be able to conclude that it is exactly ISWAP. Even when they do issue a statement to claim responsibility, because sometimes when they see this type of international attention, they would want to claim responsibility. I would still encourage that we run an investigation to identify and gather evidence to conclude that, yes, this is those that are behind the incident.
Just before we bring in the other guest, Kabir, earlier you said that after U.S. forces took out the commander and the spokesperson of ISWAP somewhere in Syria, the group vowed to get on a mission of revenge. I'm just wondering, how would that link up with Nigeria? Nigeria, of course, isn't participating in the Syrian conflict, and Nigeria didn't take out their henchmen in this conflict. Why then would they be focusing on Nigeria? As you have said, we've had incidents. Sometimes in the beginning, I did say that on Good Morning Nigeria. What was happening in Taraba seemed inexplicable, but you're putting it in context now. We have also seen Kogi, and then, of course, what has happened in Owo. So why is it that something else happened, authored by another country, and then they are looking for a scapegoat in Nigeria?
A brilliant question, Kingsley. The global terrorism franchise, and apologies, I'm using that word. I can't think of any better phrase to put that franchise. There are two major, sections of that franchise: the Islamic State as well as Al Qaeda. Now, for the Islamic State, it has different affiliates. Now, in the case of Nigeria, and that surprised us, after the death of the then leader in February and the launching of this campaign for the revenge of the killing of what it called the revenge of the killing of the two sheikhs, we were shocked that about 6 different groups in the Lake Chad area, most of them in Nigeria, came out to release statements pledging allegiance to that global franchise called IS. So suggesting that apart for instance, from ISWAP, there are other smaller groups that are affiliated either to ISWAP or to that group. So in a nutshell, it's more like a franchise. There is the global body, and then there are sub-units within the different regions. Now, in the case of the Lake Chad region, ISWAP is the dominant group, but like I said, there are other smaller groups. So if you also look at Al Qaeda, it's the same thing. Groups like Ansaru are also affiliated to it, and several other groups that are operating within the Sahel region. So when they release a campaign, like the campaign for the revenge of the two sheikhs, all of these smaller franchises would tie into that campaign. Now, in the case of Nigeria, immediately after they began that campaign, especially during the Ramadan, we counted about 9 incidents, major incidents. You recall the attacks in Taraba, like you mentioned. All of them, the claim by ISWAP suggested that it was in conformity with that global campaign. Incidentally, the group is also running another campaign, what it calls the battle of the economy. So in that battle, it's targeting economic infrastructure. So as an example, last month in May, there was the bombing of an electrical pole somewhere in Bauchi, which was also claimed by the group as part of this battle of the economy. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that there is a global movement, and that global movement, what happens, for instance, in Syria or Iraq, has consequence in Nigeria, and that means our global or international or foreign intelligence agencies should pay attention to such development, and not just pay attention to it, do the analysis and see how it can impact in Nigeria. Like I said, when the incident happened in Kogi, I just put a protractor in Kaba and drew a perimeter around Kaba and told myself that any distance within 20, 30 to 50 kilometers is liable and is vulnerable to attack. So I think we should be doing that type of analysis and also putting into focus these international developments.
Okay, just my last question to you before we come back to the studio. If you consider some of the reasons, that have been put out there on the social media, stories surrounding, what happened at the St. Francis Catholic Church. For instance, we've read, in some areas where some people have stated that one of the attackers came asking for a particular priest, and then we've also seen some reasons adduced by the Pan-Yoruba group raising issues like the law on the open grazing. Of course, the state insists setting up of a particular security outfit and all that. Now, if you consider all of this, should we pay less attention to the other splinter groups that are operating, within our own region?
Not at all, Claire. Every non-state actor, as long as that non-state actor is armed, and as long as that non-state actor has subversive tendencies, we should pay attention to it. And squarely, this is a responsibility that lies on the shoulder of our intelligence agencies. They should be able to have, in a very clear manner, the imperatives behind the activities of these non-state actors. Now, it's never easy in intelligence. We're speaking about ISWAP now, but how are we sure that ISWAP did not partner, as it were, with criminal groups or gunmen groups that are operating in that region? They do that. So, for instance, they can, if they want to carry out an attack, engage other non-state actors that they know would be convenient for them and who are looking for reasons to operate. So we need to pay attention to all non-state actors and understand the dynamics at play. Yes, there are grievances that exist in Ondo State, just like in any other state, and those grievances can be exploited by any terrorist or subversive group. And so intelligence, I cannot re-emphasize the role of intelligence in all of this, and that is why the statement yesterday by the Minister of Interior was quite, I would say, timely, suggesting that they are looking into the issue, they understand it. But if I'm going to add to it, I would say the intelligence is only good if it's preventative. In this instance, we should have known that this is going to happen, and we should have put forward measures to prevent it from happening. So good development, good progress, but to make it even better, let's expand our intelligence capabilities to understand ways to prevent these things from occurring. And there are two major ways to do this. Number one is the use of technical intelligence. The world has progressed. Technical intelligence would make it very easy, especially within the cyberspace. A lot of these things can be detected within the cyberspace. We're in a public forum, so I don't want to speak too much about that. Then the other one is what is called open source intelligence, otherwise OSINT. Now, combining these two together with human intelligence will give us, an edge over and above both the terrorist and the subversive elements within our society. But like I said at the beginning, it's never simple. It's a complex web of different groups acting together. And once we're able to understand this complex web, then we'll be able to put, preventive measures to ensure that, the capability that we have for protecting our citizens is enhanced.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kabir Adamu. We're going to pause your link and return to you in the course of the conversation. Thanks a lot for your exposition. Now, back to our studios here. We have introduced retired DIG, Jabila and also Brigadier General Kukasheka Usman. They're still here with us in the studios. Gentlemen, well, I said earlier that it was surprising to the non-initiates into intelligence and security matters. But Kabir Adamo has clarified that to say for those who are steeped in these matters, that there was a sense in which anyone within the radius that he mentioned might have been impacted or might have been a target for these terrorists. What's your reading of what happened? 40 persons confirmed dead, and there are still others in the hospital. Let's begin with General.
Well, if you recall, I think Monday this week, right here in this studio, I made reference to the fact that you cannot rule out those possibilities initiated by Dr. Adamo, in the sense that if you look at the recent happening in Kogi State, for instance, and of course the level, contiguous border states, with that state, Ekiti, and on those states, you cannot. And more so, there is a thick forest there that serve as a kind of hideout for criminal elements of various hues and colors, what have you. So there is every likelihood that the criminal elements are taking advantage of those vulnerabilities and expanding their atrocities beyond Kogi State and to a larger extent Ekiti and now Ondo State. Now, the issue of identifying a particular terrorist group or criminal element, so far the evidences are not pointing to that. More so that typical of a terrorist group by now, given the number of days, by now they would have claimed responsibility. And what I'm trying to say here is that we should not preclude other options, because if you look at if you are profiling the criminal antecedents in those areas, there were instances where simply because of family dispute, people were burnt, and all the rest, and there are political issues. And I made reference to the fact that even the government is carrying out proactive measures, developmental projects that will not be inimical to the economic interest, to speak, of the drug dealers, particularly those that are cultivating marijuana. So there are so many options. It is a complex thing. Therefore, I think we should not preclude anything else. But just like I said the other day, that the world is watching those security and intelligence agencies, that they just have to crack this nut to understand, and not just to understand, to find out the perpetrators and the motive behind this. Because it's only a madman that will just go to a place of worship and shoot people. Otherwise, if that person is sane enough, so what is the reason behind it, and who are those? So it's a kind of collective thing, and that is why I said that we should also, there should be a kind of synergy of effort between the state and the federal government in conjunction with the people, and use of technology, because I know for sure it may take long. Those perpetrators will definitely be found, but we should intensify effort, and those who are responsible for doing that, we should support them as much as we can with timely and accurate information. There are so many conspiracy theories right now as it is. As we are coming into this studio, somebody was even sending stories that the perpetrators have been arrested, and mob are besieging the palace of the Oba in Owo, that they should not take them to security agencies. But that is not true. So what I'm trying to say here is that we should not rule out all options, even though typically for kidnappers, they would have gone with some of their victims. But this time around, nobody has been kidnapped. So who are those that are alive, that witness this, and they should be forthcoming, and we should give them protection. Possibly we should be able to put the pieces together. And one other thing I have to say again, Because when you critically examine the scene of the incidents, a lot of movements, so they are tampering with the forensic evidence, even though our investigative process is not scientific enough. But I think these are issues that we should also look at. Then, beyond that, up to now, it is not just Ondo State that is traumatized, the whole of the nation is traumatized. I think we should go out beyond all this statement to make sure that we bring succor to the families of the victims, to see to what extent the state care. And, you know, that will give people greater sense of belonging, and possibly those with some information will be forthcoming too.
My question is to both of you, Brigadier General Kukasheka and of course former DIG. I'm just wondering, like Dr. Kabiru said, our security agencies ought to be proactive, not reactive. If we had the kind of intelligence information as Dr. Kabiru had analyzed, had given us, my question is, what did we do with such information? Obviously not much, given the success and the casualty of what happened in Owo.
Thank you. What I've seen here is that the perpetrators of this crime must have adopted this 3S, that is speed, surprise, and they succeeded. No doubt, for every sin of crime, there are likely to be some traces that will be left behind. And because of failure of intelligence, it wasn't possible for anybody to have thought that something like that could happen. But now that it has happened, there has been a lot of promises, and I think that it's very disturbing. And I'm also aware that there's a lot of effort made to see that some of the people who would have sinned, because of course, at the point of preparing to commit that kind of crime, some other people must have seen something strange. And when this happened, and in an attempt to also escape, some people would have sinned. But this is why we're saying that everybody should own security and be very, 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 very open to watch. And if you see something, say something. I think if we put pressure and try as much as possible to find out some of the roots and what really happened, people will soon come up with some of these things they saw. And when we analyze, I think we're likely to get to who actually did this, because they would have escaped and some people would have seen them. And as they were also coming, people saw them. And because of the awareness in Ondo and the security outfit that was put down there using the community, I think that with time we should be able to unmask, these perpetrators of this crime to some extent. I think that they will of course there will be something very, 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 very real that will give.
That's what I'm saying. Now we are trying to react. We had information, valuable information. If we listened to the analysis Kabiru gave, I mean, there were suspicions that such a thing could happen.
Yes.
What did we do? These people came in, Kingsley, operated for 30 minutes, we are told, and then vanished into thin air, and we are now looking. I mean, what does it tell us, Christian? What does it tell us about the strength and capability of our security agencies?
I think you see both previous guests, speakers, made inference to the fact that security is a collective responsibility. And one thing, it is a complex thing. But most importantly, even if you have the intelligence, what is the level of your response mechanism? This is a question you should ask. And now if you take Ondo State in particular, despite the presence of the security outfit, the Amotokun, what is the level of police deployment? How many number of DSS personnel do you have? What of other security agencies? Vis-a-vis the vast land and the number of people. But beyond that, as it may, if you look at some of the developed countries, let's even take United Kingdom. maybe in London, wherever you are, you know, there is this arrangement. If for whatever reason there is an emergency and you made a phone call, within 15 minutes, be it what it may, it could be the fire service, it could be the ambulance, it could be the police, but within 15 minutes, somebody somewhere will be there. So to what extent do we have such in place? Now you look at the large expanse of the Nigerian society and the level of security, education and awareness among the components of Nigerian society. The DIG has said so. You know that people definitely must have witnessed, and I made inference to tampering with the scene of the crime because of forensic evidence. There is no magic about it. They don't believe in all these miracles that you are talking about. A criminal always leave evidences at the scene of the crime. So it's left for the expert to trace those evidences. It could be footprint, it could even be sweat, it could be anything, it could be hair. So these are the issues. So the issue of the response mechanism, that is the most important. And of course, it is never as easy as it is, because these criminal elements, they always explore the vulnerabilities of the security architecture or even the components of Nigerian society. Why is it that sometimes we talked about emphasis on professionalism, accuracy and objectivity in media reportage? Because in most instances, journalism is about development, not denigrating the society. Because so much as you think you are enjoying the freedom of speech and everything, the open source of information that Dr. Kabiru is talking about, those are the things. Because the negatively oriented person, you think you are doing good, but he or she is also taking undue advantage of it so that he will do whatever he wants and will take you unawares. Take for instance, even the churches. I know way back 2012 and all the rest, when we even have the barricades along church, and sometimes you don't even allow people to go to places of worship. And if at the heat of the Boko Haram instance, people were praying in tongues so that you can be able to guard to see any suspicious. So these are the issues. To what extent? But we tend to relax, and there is every likelihood by the time you go back through the timeline, there were pointers, indicators, not even necessarily, you know, sitting down to do sophisticated analysis just like Kabiru did with Protractor and all the rest, given that kind of, but within the society, you know, these are people that, what is the total number of the congregation of that church? How many people do come to worship on a Sunday? And I believe almost every other person knows the other person. So by the time you walk backward, definitely you would have seen some things that were telling you that really it's just something could be wrong. But unfortunately, these are the issues that were lacking simply because the level of security consciousness and level of awareness. So the security, coming back to what you are saying about the security agencies, there is limit to which they can do anything, because even themselves, they are dependent on the ordinary person on the street. Because right now we are all here, we don't even know what is happening. But somebody could make a phone call and tell you what is happening elsewhere, either in Kano, Kaduna or anywhere. But to what extent have we harmonized those and train Nigerians to understand that when they see something, they should say something? So these are the, you know, things that you look at. And if you are talking about the security agencies and all the rest of the things, some of them, they are intelligence oriented. You get information, you process it. To what extent have other people pass it on, and what is the level of commitment? And that is why you have this lackadaisical and nonchalant attitude, not just necessarily, especially even with the public service. You hear somebody telling you that you need to follow sometimes a very serious issue that you need to follow. So there are also attitudinal issues beyond the other professional issues that we are talking about, the total gamut of national orientation and understanding. But be it as it may, security is a collective responsibility, regardless of who you are. Either you are in government or you are part of security architecture or not. And if you even look at it, the security national security strategy that was signed late in 2019, it allocated role to every segment of Nigerian society. But of course, what are those resources needed? Who is to coordinate was? What are the timeline to ensure that such things are being done? You know, you move from, let's say, the first quarter, we should have oriented Nigerians, their level of awareness has reached from A to B. And of course, our educational system, now the schools are not even working, the universities anyway, they are on strike. So you have lost an opportunity to harness, to educate the people on the rudiments of security and their professional quality. So there are so many things that beyond the security agencies that we have left, and the gaps are being exploited by, you know, the criminal minded in the Nigerian society.
All right. Thank you very much, Kuka Sheka, for the points that you have elaborated on. Dr. Kabir Adamu, I would like us to further explore the likely perpetrators of the attack on the Catholic Church in Owo. Well, Kuka Sheka raised a number of possibilities as part of the analysis. But I was just wondering, the governor, of course, comes from Owo, where the incident took place. That's one. And secondly, it appears from some of the accounts that it was more than one attacker. And they also had explosives as well as firearms. There's also an account that they then hijacked a vehicle after the incident and then took off, but that the vehicle was eventually recovered. Is this the typical methodology that the terrorists would adopt? If there are more than one person, what ordinarily those who were traumatized by the incident, and if they recover from the trauma, what should they look out for in trying to recall either the profile? Because they said those assailants were not masked.
Yes, so the modus operandi of ISWAP is typical to almost all terrorist groups. The only, I would say, major difference is their decision not to use suicide bombing as a methodology of attack as against the other terrorist groups that exist in Nigeria, such as the Jamaat al-Ahlissin al-Dawati wal-Jihad, that uses suicide bombing. In fact, it's one of the reasons why the two groups broke out. But all the other elements that we've been able to gather from different accounts after the incident says that it's typical of you know, a group like Islamic State in West Africa province. What happened is what in professional terms is called a complex attack. A complex attack is an attack that involves several methods. In this instance, there was the gun shots, what is called active shooter, and then the we're told that explosive devices were also used. Some of them did not detonate, where they were recovered by security agencies, I think a day after the incident. And then, of course, the possibility too that they you know, threw even dynamite into the church as an example. So clearly a complex attack that was planned. And I think this is, for me, the most important realization. It wasn't just an off-the-cuff occurrence. It's possible that before the incident itself, they had conducted surveillance, they had attempted to gather intelligence in terms of the security arrangement within the church, and not just within the church, but within Owo town. And that leads me back to the statements by the two other discussants. If we put in place mechanisms for harvesting intelligence, I say with all sense of responsibility, this should have been prevented. And rightly, it's not just the responsibility of the security agencies, even though constitutionally it is their responsibility, and I would not to that extent agree with the other discussants that we should absolve them of blame. No, they should be held accountable, and if I'm going to, if I had any say in all of this matter, someone somewhere should have been held accountable for that incident. 40 of our citizens are dead, and someone within the security architecture should be held accountable for allowing that incident to occur and for not doing his or her job, as the case may be. But having said that, there is a role that we as citizens can also play. I mentioned that they possibly conducted surveillance. I mentioned that they possibly tested the security within the church. And how would they have done that? A minor incident, someone who is not used to visiting that church may just join the congregation, take notes, observe how the security is arranged. Someone who is perhaps a member of that town who has been recruited as part of the group that would supply information to the group, and that person would have either been paid money or extorted in other forms. So gathering that kind of intelligence, not just by the security agencies, but by the several other layers of security. Amotekun is there, our traditional rulers are there, leaders of different aspects are also there. But I think the major point is how, when this is gathered, how is it keyed into the national security intelligence stream? And I think that is the missing element there. The good news is that I think there is an attempt by one unit within the federal arrangement to create an intelligence fusion center. And I'm hoping that once that center is created, all of these elements that I mentioned will be harvested so that we get a picture of all of these things before they happen. I mentioned earlier on that the efficacy of intelligence is when it's preventive. If it's not preventive, then frankly it's more or less useless, especially as Brigadier General Kukasheka has mentioned. The forensic evidence that could have been harvested from that incident has been destroyed. We all saw in the videos that were posted on social media how people entered the church, stepped on, in fact, even the bullet shells that is our evidence. Someone should have recovered, someone within the security agencies should have recovered those bullet shells, conducted forensic investigation on them to identify where they were bought, where they came from, who manufactured them, who was in possession of them, things like that. There is enormous amount of forensic evidence that was in that church. Unfortunately, a significant portion of that has been destroyed. What am I trying to say? Lessons should be learned. Once lessons have been learned, things like that, God forbid, are likely to happen in the future. We should use the lessons from this incident to ensure we put in place preventive measures for future occurrences. Perhaps in the course of the program we will talk about these preventive measures, so let me not jump ahead of myself and start putting recommendations.
Yes.
Recommendations.
Dr. Kabir, thanks for the issues you've raised about Claire, I think it's important for us to also hear from DIG Habila, namely response. Again, I know you're not in service, but one of the accounts I read said that there was a distress call to the police. Or it's not a village, or it's a town. It's an old town with links to the old Benin Empire. And the church itself is not located in a remote corner of Owo. There were accounts that there was a distress call. So, again, as I said, this is not verified, but they said that they had no operational vehicle, only maybe one or two persons were on duty. Now, if there is an active crime of that nature going on, and a distress call is put out, if this guy's operated for 30 minutes, what would have happened?
It is quite unfortunate that it's very possible that at the time this incident was being committed on a Sunday, and of course maybe choosing the church. People will just sit thinking that such a thing would not happen. It has happened now. It's possible also that the men that were on duty, of course, never expected this. So there's a failure there. There's a failure of the security for response. And there are so many measures you can take. If you do not have the real description of what is really happening, there are places where you have to also take cover. We call it take cover. Some of them would have been mobilized to take cover, to be able to watch, and to be able to also act when these people are running away. But that didn't work. So I would say that it was not a good one. And the church members that were there, we expected also that because you have to own your security, and that's why at every moment the security agencies would want to let people know that you have to watch your environment and you have to own your security. What should have happened? I expected that one or two should have run out of that place and be able to get to some of the places where they can let people who could take action to quickly take action.
That some of the shooters were also around the perimeter of the church. So I'm imagining, sorry, DIG, you're speaking. Again, these are some of the media accounts that we read, that while the main assailants were inside the church premises and inside the church itself, there were others, who were on the perimeter waiting to take down anyone who might be running out. So it might have been difficult for any person to run out. So the phone call or the distress call that was made would have been from within the theater of the terrorist incident.
Okay.
Yes.
It's true that if you look at the church, most churches would not let you come with your phone. But if you come with them, you switched it off. And so it was possible, like you said. Everybody was trying to find a cover so that he will be safe. So a lot of them would have not been trying to put on their phone and then scroll to get security or whoever they wanted to call. That wasn't possible. But at the same time, I think Ondo also have had this community security.
Exactly, because I was going to ask.
And they've been doing well. I also know that even their leaders are people that are well schooled in security. And I was thinking that of course, when there's a shootout or shooting, it's possible that people from distance will know that there's danger. And so I think there were failures of a lot of things. And I think that this is a wake-up call for us. And I happened to be where the governor was on that day. And then he had an assignment, and he was so disturbed and left that to someone and jet out. And so this is I think that we should look at the security setup, because I've said it here that members of the community, you must own your security.
I see you are yourself lost for words. To say that you've said it. There was a failure of some sort. Yes. With the police. So let me ask again. On this program, we've talked about community policing. Is this not one of the reasons why we have some policemen embedded within the community, within the village, to gather, information and so I don't know. Maybe you need to help us out. Is that not one of the reasons?
Yes, community policing is an attempt to build confidence and trust in members of the public as to what the security agencies are doing. It is also to share intelligence, because those that reside in the community knows most of they know everyone. And if as a police officer you are posted, you have to rely on those people to know.
Yes, you embed the policemen within the community, right?
Yes. And so this again is a wake-up call to us that we should go back and see what has gone wrong. Because like I said, these people did not just come in. They must have studied. They must have placed surveillance. They must have been in that community and know what exactly would happen. They choose a Sunday and they went into that church in order to attract attention, and also they know that in the church it's going to be something else. People that are there were not ready for anything. A lot of them, like you said, will not be able to reach their telephones, and it happened. And I think we need to look at the setup again, the Omotekun that are there. Like I said, security agencies maybe must have also, take cover. Because when you hear that, you begin to think, why would these people escape through? And those are places where you are supposed to deploy and ensure that people take cover and be ready to pick anything. But you can't just begin to shoot unless you are sure that the people that are escaping, and these people escape through seizing vehicles, and that makes it very difficult for anybody to conclude that this could be the people that are escaping.
DIG, well, part of what you are saying, let me illustrate this. Some months ago, there were several videos that went viral. I wouldn't know, gentlemen, whether you saw those videos. The videos were of an armed robbery incident. In fact, multiple armed robbery incidents on the same day at a place called Urome in Edo State. The robbers attacked various banks. They used explosives to gain access into the banking halls and then, of course, into the vaults. They were not masked, and then you saw them, the videos, you saw them also hauling the monies that they had taken from the banks, and people, of course, were running helter-skelter. Something significant happened. Well, nobody tried to confront them why those incidents were going on, because they were said to have earlier attacked some police stations at Urome itself. Urome is a town in Edo State. But it turned out, according to one account, that as they were making their exit, because they were in a convoy, the youth in the neighboring community had communicated to say, look, this is what is happening here at Urome, and then they could access, or they could imagine their getaway route. So what they then did was to barricade the routes. So when the robbers got there, they couldn't make away with all their haul. They then had to look for a much smaller vehicle. I think maybe one or two of them got stranded or something, who was then firing widely. They abandoned some of the loot, abandoned some of the vehicles, and then made away. I'm not sure whether there's been an update on what happened. That's to say, once there was an active crime incident like that, there was another incident. I don't know whether, gentlemen, you remember. This was some years ago.
Yes.
It was again a robbery incident at a bank, and not too far off was a river. So the robbers, after collecting their haul from the bank, and they took quite some time, now went to the river, boarded their boats. But the police already had information that this is what was happening at that bank. So they went several kilometers ahead, where you have one of the bridges over the bank, over the river, awaiting the return or the passage of the robbers. Information has it that at the time the robbers were now coming. Of course, you can see them because they were wielding their guns. The police men who had taken cover in some of the bushes around the bridge there took them out. So, which leads us to this whole issue, General Kukasheka, that we're talking about. This incident happened in a town. It's not, as I said, it's not a village. And more audaciously, the attackers didn't wear any mask. So, what possibly, and I'm imagining, for instance, that if they had undertaken the prior casing of the environment, probably they could have lodged in a hotel or two before this incident. What could the citizens on their own do in terms of seeking to recollect what they saw immediately before or even after the incident?
Well, I will still have to take us back again and to Monday, and specifically I suggested that there should be a thorough investigation, and that investigation will determine all the answers to some of these questions. And thankfully, Dr. Kabira Adamu had made inference to that. And most of all these things, I made also reference to the level of security awareness and education. And I will give you an example. Yesterday, at the golf club, we were talking about these security issues, and the bulk of us were either serving military officers or retired military officers, and of course there was this senior citizen, a civilian, and you know, they were relating how they were attacked, you know, by robbers. So the military officer that was with him immediately dashed down on the ground, and the man started waving, and the military officer had to pull him down. It was all said and done. Later on, he asked, and they told him, actually, whenever there is a such thing, the first thing is for you, because flying bullets and all the rest. And I even made joke to him that whenever you had the sound of any gun shot, definitely be rest assured it's not meant for you, because if you are bound to that. Definitely you will not even hear it. So invariably it goes back to what I was saying about collective responsibility when it comes to security. But collective responsibility will come with education. To what extent have we enlightened the Nigerian society on the expected role? Yes, we have the security agencies. To what extent are they professional and capable as well as competent enough to deliver on their mandate? To what extent have you invested in their equipment holding, in their numbers, in their training? These are the issues. And, you know, when you go back, and had it been that there is this constructive engagement, and I will give you an example. When there was this suicide, it was not even suicide bombing. In those days, 2012 or 13, I cannot remember precisely. I was serving in one division, and that time Boko Haram was so determined to get a foothold in the northwestern part of the country, particularly in Kano, Kaduna, and Sokoto. You remember the Wamako bombing and all the rest of them and what have you. And now, because of the checkpoints, they were having a Siana bus laden with IEDs and all the rest. They were heading towards Savontisha, a congregation that had about 3,000 worshippers. But because they have to circumvent, given the time and all the rest, along Ahmadu Bello, a very short to the stadium roundabout, you know, the bomb, you know, the vehicle exploded. There and then 22 people were killed, including Okada riders. Some people came even to buy just Accra. Some people were reading newspapers and all the rest. And we came up with this idea of stakeholders, you know, meeting fortnightly or so. And every segment of the Nigerian society, resident in Kaduna, were invited. You know, the clergy, traditional rulers, youth group, you know, and all the rest. And even now, we are still in contact with them. So they were able to help and assist with intelligent information, and of course if they see something, and they also act. But on the part of the security agencies, we were able to enlighten them what is expected of them. Of course, some of them that are criminally minded, of course they will report back to say this is what the security are. It's a kind of double-edged sword, but it's better. You can, even in terms of administering or governing a society, it is better to have an educated society than an illiterate one, unless if you do not mean good. Therefore, education is the key. It is not necessarily formal education, but the fact that we should conscientize all Nigerians. Yes, when trouble comes, sometimes you forget yourself. You cannot be, but with consistent training, you anticipate and you do that. And that is why the issue of distress call and all the rest. And going back to what I was saying also, beyond that, the churches and the places of worship, mosques, we came out with strategies. Everybody was, you know, and we still have the legacy of it that if you go, take for instance, somewhere, you cannot go to AYA using the normal, you know, 2-lane on Sunday, because there was a church, there is a church on the right hand side. Of course, the road is blocked, and you have, you know, security, not necessarily even the uniform security agencies or the rest, but even the church complement that effort. And we have to imbibe the use of technology. It's a place of worship. I doubt if some of this, they have massive television stage and what have you, possibly they don't even have CCTV in most of the places of worship, and it's about time we have that.
Brigadier General Kukachika, let me pause you. I'm sorry, we need to go for a break. Please, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Wake up the champion in your child. Give them energy to go further. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child. Milo.
The Nigerian aviation sector is rapidly growing with the construction of new international airport terminals in several regions of the country. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport has an estimated passenger increase of 30 million annually and 15 million for Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is also expected to open new frontiers for the region with more travel capacity for the annual Hajj, while the new Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, avails more business opportunities connecting the industrial cities in the region to the world. This new terminals beat world-class standards with enabling infrastructure that aid air travel, tourism, and the eventual growth of the country's GDP.
Open up commerce and, of course, link us to international societies.
People from international community will come here to do business, and then that will bring in
more revenue to the state.
Now, distances can be seamlessly covered as Nigeria keeps raising its bar to suit global infrastructure standards.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Do you run a breast or cervical cancer service? Are you a private or public laboratory, clinic or hospital that offer any of breast imaging, cervical cancer screening, HPV vaccination, or other breast or cervical cancer services? Is your service a primary, secondary, or tertiary center located in any part of Nigeria, no matter how remotely located it is? If yes to any of these questions, then subscribe to the OCI Foundation's Savvy Breast app and become accessible and visible to millions of Nigerians. It is all for free. To subscribe, just type the Savvy Breast application form on Google or go to the OCI Foundation's page on www.ocifoundation.org and search for Savvy Breast application form. Complete the form and submit. And let millions of Nigerians patronize you, all for free. Become part of the OCI Foundation's quest to tackle breast and cervical cancers in Nigeria. And join us to rise by lifting off.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
It's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're on the home stretch on this conversation, updating the terrorist attack on the St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo. The attack took place on Pentecost Sunday, that was last Sunday, in Ondo State. DIG Joshak Babila, in terms of citizen responsibility and community responsibility for incidents of this nature, what more would you suggest? It is not just maybe against armed robbers, against bandits, against kidnappers, even just basic protection of public infrastructure.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's the security agencies in this country have always emphasized the fact that they have been given an assignment, and that assignment is ensuring the safety of the people and their properties. Beyond that, that wouldn't work on its own. We've always emphasized that every citizen must take security as a personal affair, to be able to also say something when you see something. Yeah, well, it is true that there's a big gap in funding, and I also think that the resources that is scarce will also be distributed, and so one would not say that the whole resources of the government of the day must go to the security. And in security is very, very expensive, very, very expensive. And then sometimes you don't see the product. And so people think that there's just no need for keep pushing money. I want to tell the citizen of this country that you must be able to be involved in the safety of yourself and your environment. In the case of what has happened in Ondo, it's evidently clear that these people came and they must have stayed somewhere. And people must have seen that these people are people that cannot be trusted. Even those who would have come to do some surveillance in that church, some people would have been picked. People must have seen strange faces. And you know, when you are preparing to commit crime, there's this tendency that you will not be balanced. And when people look at you, they will know that there's something, you know, happening, and that you are about to do one or two things. And everybody kept quiet. And so, members of the public, the citizen of this country, should not say, oh, we have the police, or we have the Omoteki, or we have the other people that would prevent this kind of a thing. So this is a wake-up call. And we are saying that everybody should own his security. And to the security agencies, they should try to build trust in the citizen. People should be able to be very confident and very, very willing to come forward and share what they've seen. A lot of people say, if I tell police are going to disclose this. If I tell the security are going to betray me. And so there's that gap there. And it is the duty of the security agencies to bridge that gap by making sure that there is trust between them and the community, so that whatever information they see, they will be able to come and relate that, and action will be taken. I think that we need to do better than this. And we need also to look for fun, to be able to put some intelligence platforms and a lot of things that would not necessarily the human effort, and people would have seen that people are preparing, because there has been some surveillance. These people that came in didn't just come in on that Sunday. They would have been there days trying to find out, what do we do? What do these people do? What do they have? Can we do this? And they did it. And so I think that the citizen of this country should do everything possible to ensure that they work together with any security operative that exists in their place. Then we'll go a long way.
All right. Dr. Kabir, we have very few minutes to round off our conversation. But now that we know that there is a kind of revenge mission in the air, and that our alert level should be raised to the red, again, what would be your advice to the citizens now, while the security agencies are doing their own work? What should be the responsibility of Nigerians now, especially at those, soft target areas that you earlier mentioned?
Thank you, Claire. First off, I agree with one of the discussants who said we should own up to our own security. And in doing that, there are layers of security that we should put in place for every public environment location, such as a church, as an example. There should be, let me quickly mention the layers. The layer to detect when something is off, the layer to deny. If, for instance, someone who shouldn't be in the church is coming to the church, and then the layer to delay. Even, for instance, where you detect or you attempt to deny, and then the person has a gun. Perhaps you don't have a gun, you can't stop him. So how do you delay him? And then the last layer is the response layer. Now, this is in normal security. These are the 4 layers. And so every public place, whether of worship or other, should be able to have these 4 layers. It is the role of the security agencies to support these public places in developing these layers. But where the security agencies don't, there are consultants like us that will be happy to support the implementation of these layers. Time will not allow me to go into the details of the layers. The second thing I want to mention is there is an app that is available on mobile phones. It's called Citizens 8. There are two versions of the Citizens Aid app. One is the US version, the other one is the UK version. The app tells you what to do if you are in a distress situation. So in the case of an active shooter situation, how do you respond? Some of the discussants have mentioned that lay flat on the floor. There are several other components of that. So I'll urge every citizen to download that app. And more importantly, I'll urge the security department, especially the Office of the National Security Advisor, to develop a similar arrangement in Nigeria where citizens can go to and get that kind of information on how to, respond in distress situation. We've seen instances of several attacks. The train attack in March is an example. The Owo attack is one. So these things are here to stay. We need to develop the resilience of our populace to respond to these developments. I'll stop here, even though I have a lot to say, but I know time is not in our favor.
Well, we're discussing a very serious issue, so please excuse my chuckle. Dr. Kabir Adamu, we know that there's linguistic interference. I would struggle, for instance, pronouncing some Hausa names or Igbo names or Yoruba names. You said Owo. Owo is different from Owo. Owo is a variety of soup, Owo is a variety of soup. So when you say Owo, it's a different thing. But when you say Owo, actually some people say that it's derivative from Owo, which means respect, which is the name of the place that we're talking about. But very quickly, I know because we've had conversations around the so-called ungoverned spaces. Assuming these assailants didn't stay in the town in terms of their surveillance and then in terms of their getaway, chances are that they probably came again from one of those so-called ungoverned spaces. And the question keeps arising, are we utilizing sufficiently our numbers of security agencies and security personnel? Because everywhere you go to in an urban area, you find a surplusage of security officials, and you just ask yourself what's going on. And in the meantime, highways are mostly unsafe and all that. Kabir.
There is one thing that we need to do. We need to go after the enemy. We can dance around it, for whatever, but we need to go after the enemy. The enemy is known. He or she is not a ghost, but we're not going after the enemy enough. In this instance, these gunmen, whether I just call them non-state actors, terrorists, bandits, they hibernate in these ungoverned spaces. Let's enter that ungoverned spaces and do away with them. Anything short of that means we're waiting for them to come and attack us. And incidents like, the one in Owo, right? If I pronounced it well, will occur again. Incidents like the one happened along on the Kaduna bound train will occur. Let's go after them and rid them of our society. Anything short of that, honestly, it's just we're just dilly-dallying and waiting for another incident to occur. So yes, the 27 ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in security have one key responsibility, and that is to protect us. And I'm saying that the best way to protect us is to galvanize themselves and go after the enemy and stop this dilly-dallying that we're seeing at the moment.
Wondering, General Kukasheka, ungoverned spaces, reading the ungoverned spaces of criminal elements will bring to mind experts in jungle warfare. How much of that can we utilize?
Yeah, I know way back, I think even when I was in the service, I know the army had taken audit of most of these forest areas. The issue of ungoverned space is subjective. I would rather use the forest areas. And I was made to understand Niger State alone, I think they have about almost 90, Federal Reserve. So to what extent? Because yes, you have taken the audits. Do you have the capability? And that is where the issue of synergy of effort and of course, cross-fertilization of ideas come into play. I know, for instance, now bulk of the strategic training institutions, and in fact, right now at the resource center, on a weekly basis, current contemporary issues are being discussed, and solutions or implementation, recommendation and implementation strategies, just like the National Institute does. are passed to the appropriate, channels. To what extent are this being, taken seriously is entirely a different thing. But take it as it is. The issue now, the truth is that we are facing an existential threat, just like Kabiru has said. If you don't go after the enemy will remain resilient and he will definitely get rid of you. And we are all living witnesses. Take, for instance, Abuja seems to be the most secured place, but come and see roads that are supposed to be dual carriageway, they have been made one way. Every day we kept on protecting and shrinking the space and all the rest. And these people are not fools. They are watching and they are taking advantage of these vulnerabilities. And of course, you are so afraid to die, so they will keep on, going up. So at certain point in time, something has to give up and we just have to, go after them. But how do we go after them? I talked about the education. So there should be a kind of comprehensive approach involving these three, the citizens' enlightenment, so that they should know what they should do, their role and their responsibilities. But it is not enough. You have to provide the support mechanism. I know it took the Nigerian army sometimes to come up with the public emergency 193 telephone service before the national one come in board. We shouldn't have. It's a country of 200 million. We are not thinking about safety and security, that you don't even have a common public, telephone number that is short. That it was much later.
Brigadier General,
I think
much later.
Is it 112 or 122?
No, 193.
No, there's one.
Now there is one. Is it 122?
Also,
yes.
Was it available or was it active?
We are not even debating on that. Sorry to preempt you. I talked about only one layer. Enlightening the citizen and supporting them. Now, to what extent are you equipping the security agencies to be responsible? I mean, to be responsive enough to their, statutory duties. Then, of course, we look at our criminal justice system, because bulk of the problem we're having is simply because there is so much impunity. People will commit offense and they will be prosecuted, and the next thing you see them on the street. Or sometimes they were not.
I'm sorry, I have to allow you to land now so that he can also have the final say. We've run out of time. Just conclude your thoughts.
Okay, so now you look at that level. So it is a government issue. The government has to come in. Then, of course, beyond that, there should be coordination. There are so many agencies. Kabiru mentioned 27. I think there are more than that. To what extent have you been supporting, national orientation agency, so that citizens are properly educated and people are supported, the security agencies? If you go to our villages, you will see one man with suit following.
Thank you.
But what does he do with the information?
Thank you. Let's get your message.
Yes.
To the police now.
Going forward, the services should emphasize togetherness. There should be no this issue of superiority of service. That does not allow. It prevents people from the security agencies, the military and others, from sharing information, because these are people that are handy. These are people that could immediately respond to any incident. And then, like I said again, those of them that are deployed to wherever they are, they must build trust and confidence in the community and work with the community, and their yes must be their yes. In doing that, they will get a lot of intelligence. They will be supported. If there's anything like this, I'm telling you, all those whose character are shoddy, people in the community who are not trusted, their identity will be revealed to that DPO or other officers.
DIG retired Joshua Kabila, I'd like to appreciate you. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you join us for this conversation. Let me also appreciate first Dr. Kabiru Adamu, who joined us from our Kaduna studio. He's a security risk management expert. Always a delight to have you with us, Dr. Adamu. And finally, let me appreciate Brigadier General Sani Kukashika Usman. He's a consultant with the Nigerian Army Resource Center and, of course, former spokesman of the Nigerian Army. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, and indeed the last for this week. Of course, it's a Friday. We'll be back on Monday. And all of us there, goodbye. Claire Adilabo after this.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Enjoy your weekend and also enjoy your public holiday on Monday. But Good Morning Nigeria will be on Monday.